Alexandra Eala walked onto the Foro Italico clay on May 6, 2026, ranked world number 42. 2 hours and 7 minutes later, she walked off ranked world number 38. And the reason that happened, for the actual reason, is not what Rafael Nadal's advice sounds like on the surface. The media keeps calling it a secret strategy. But what Nadal told Eala wasn't a tactical blueprint, it wasn't a serve adjustment, it wasn't a footwork drill. It was 3 words, delivered not across a net, not during a practice session, but at a graduation ceremony at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Mallorca. And those 3 words are now shaping the trajectory of Philippine tennis in ways the WTA ranking system has only just begun to register. This isn't a story about a tennis match. It's a story about what an institution does to a person over a decade, and what that person then does on the most important clay courts in Europe.
Well, aside from all of the really core relationships that I've had that have brought me to where I am today, like my team, of course meeting Rafa, and just, you know, being able to kind of converse with him on quite a regular basis is crazy to me.
To understand what really happened in Rome, you have to go back to a tournament in France that most tennis fans have never heard of. The Les Petits As, a premier event for players aged 12 to 14. A tournament that, for Alexandra Eala, didn't just produce a trophy, it produced a phone call from Mallorca. For the first 10 years of her development, from age 3.5 to 13, Eala trained daily under her grandfather, hitting balls alongside her brother in the Philippines. That structure built something real, but it lacked one thing the professional circuit demands: international competition density, the Les Petits. As victory changed that calculation instantly, representatives from the Rafa Nadal Academy identified Eala's potential and extended a scholarship that removed the financial barrier that stops most players from emerging tennis nations from ever making it this far. Eala moved to Spain at 13, and from that moment, the Rafa Nadal Academy didn't just train her. Joan Bosch, Luke Bauza, and Sandro Villaini, the dedicated coaching trio assigned to her development, began building the athlete who would go on to win the US Open girls singles title in 2022, graduate from the Academy in 2023, and stand inside the WTA Top 40 by May of 2026. But here's what the scholarship model actually purchased. It wasn't just court time, it was proximity. And proximity in Manacor means something very specific.
I'm flattered to be, you know, compared to him. I think he's a great player, and he seems to be handling it really well. But no, maybe that's something I should talk to him about. I don't know.
The most significant piece of advice Alexandra Eala attributes to Rafael Nadal is this: surround yourself with good people. That's it. That's the secret strategy. That's what the headlines keep referencing. And the first reaction most people have is that it sounds almost too simple, too basic for a player trying to climb from the bottom of the WTA toward the top 10. But the second reaction, the one that takes a moment longer to arrive, is far more important. Because quote 2 in Eala's world isn't a motivational phrase, it's a structural decision. Her entire competitive setup, coaches Joan Bosch, Luke Bauza, and Sandro Villaini, reflects that directive in its most literal form, and it extends further than that, further than most people watching have noticed. Eala has confirmed that Toni Nadal, Rafael Nadal's uncle and former coach, quote, 3 coaches her. Let that sit for a moment. Toni Nadal isn't a figurehead. He's the tactical mind behind the most successful clay court career in the history of the sport. The man who engineered 14 French Open titles now has a hand in Alexandra Eala's development. That detail has been sitting in plain sight, and almost nobody is talking about what it actually means. On May 6, 2026, Eala opened the Internazionale BNL d'Italia against world number 45 Magdalena Fręch of Poland. And what unfolded across those 2 hours and 7 minutes wasn't a dominant performance, it was something more revealing than dominance. The first set was a statement, a bagel, 6-love. Eala dictating every exchange from the baseline, winning 67% of her first serve points, controlling pace and depth with the kind of clarity that made Fręch, a player who had reached a career high of world number 22, look genuinely overmatched. Then Fręch adjusted, she changed her depth, varied her pace, and experienced what her own coaching staff calls an intensity drop. The second set went to Fręch, 6-3. And that's when things shifted. In the deciding set, Eala fell behind 0-2 and found herself facing a 0-30 deficit in the third game. At that point, the match was genuinely in danger. Her clay record entering Rome, 2 wins, 3 losses, made this feel like another chapter in an unresolved story. But Eala recovered. She won 6 of the final 7 games, 6-4 in the third. Her post-match assessment, 3 words: underscore, underscore, underscore 5, underscore, underscore, not a complaint, not an excuse, a self-diagnosis, a standard she'd internalized so completely that dropping a set because of a lapse in physical intensity registered not as a tactical problem to be discussed, but as a personal failure to be corrected. That's not something coaches teach you in a session. That's something an institution builds into you over years. The result? 35 ranking points, 25,515 euros in prize money, and a live ranking of world number 38.
I'm really super grateful that everyone, all of these supporters want to follow in that journey that I have. But I owe it to myself, first and foremost, and to my family and to my team to give it everything I have. And yeah, the rest will follow, I think.
Rafael Nadal officially retired from professional tennis before the 2026 season. And yet, in late 2025, he stepped back onto a tennis court for the first time since that retirement. The occasion was a practice session with Alexandra Eala. Eala described the session as physically demanding and crazy. Even in retirement, with no ranking to protect, no tournament to prepare for, Nadal's intensity on court gave her a benchmark that she called formative. The psychological impact of training against a standard that elite competition itself can't always match, that's not something you can measure in ranking points. But it shows up. It showed up in Rome, in a third set, when a player who had just lost the second set chose to push harder rather than simply manage the moment. The Rafa Nadal Academy has always been described as a place that builds psychological resilience. What that actually means in practice is that the standard around Alexandra Eala is set by people who genuinely don't know how to accept a drop in intensity. That's not metaphor, that's institutional design. The 2026 season hasn't been a quiet climb. 2 separate controversies revealed just how much weight Eala carries beyond the baseline. At the 2026 Indian Wells Open, American media figure Oprah Winfrey made comments that were widely perceived as questioning Eala's long-term potential as a global elite. Eala's response wasn't delivered in a press conference. It was delivered on the court, a dramatic 3-set victory over Diana Yastremska 7-5, 4-6, 7-5. The national conversation that followed underlined something the WTA ranking system simply doesn't capture. Alexandra Eala isn't just a tennis player to the Philippines. The Philippine press has compared her to Manny Pacquiao, and that comparison carries a weight of expectation that Eala herself has described as having the whole country behind your back. Then there's the other story, the lighter one. During her breakthrough run to the 2025 Miami Open semifinals, Eala received a direct message from Rafael Nadal. She left it unread for 4 days, not accidentally, intentionally. She'd removed herself from her phone entirely to focus on, as she put it, the tennis part of her responsibilities. The media framed it as a near scandal. The Academy staff described it as exactly the kind of decision they'd trained her to make. 2 controversies. 2 very different pressures, one response to each: perform and protect the process. Now here's the part of the Alexandra Eala story that keeps getting underplayed: the serve. Analysis of her 2026 matches, including the Rome win over Fręch, points to a recurring structural weakness. Her first serve frequently averages around 70 miles per hour. At that speed, players like Iga Swiatek and Elena Rybakina don't just return it, they attack it. They turn the first ball into an offensive opportunity. For Eala to compete at the level she's clearly capable of reaching, the serve has to evolve. Joan Bosch, Luke Bauza, and Sandro Viene know this. Her clay record of 2 wins and 3 losses entering Rome, including a second-round exit at the Madrid Open to world number 21 Elise Mertens, 2-6, 1-6 on April 24th, reflected a player whose ground strokes and mental toughness were ahead of her service firepower, which makes what she's attempting in Rome even more significant. To be seeded at the 2026 French Open, Roland Garros, Eala needs to reach the top 32. From world number 38, that means accumulating somewhere between 150 and 200 additional ranking points. A quarter-final run in Rome would get her there, but the path runs directly through a player Eala has unfinished business with.
I was surrounded by so many amazing athletes. I was able to steal a selfie with the hosts, Novak and Eileen Gu. And yeah, I was shaking to ask for that selfie. And then to see Nadia Comaneci also, and her speech was so beautiful.
She's a huge tennis fan, Nadia Comaneci.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know.
Wang Xinyu, world number 31, seeded in Rome, and the player who eliminated Alexandra Eala in 3 sets at the ASB Classic in Auckland at the start of this very season. The potential second-round meeting between Eala and Wang Xinyu isn't being discussed as a marquee matchup. It's being treated as a seeding question, a ranking calculation, a points projection. But look at what's actually at stake. A win over Wang Xinyu would put Eala on a clear path toward the top 32. A win, achieved with a first serve averaging 70 miles per hour against a player ranked 9 spots above her. A win on clay in Rome in May 2026 after a decade inside the Rafa Nadal Academy, with Toni Nadal's tactical fingerprints somewhere in the preparation, with __10__ functioning as the operating system, with a retired legend's practice session, still calibrating her sense of what effort actually means. That win would not be a surprise to anyone paying close attention. It would be confirmation of something the WTA ranking system has been slowly registering for 2 years, that the Rafa Nadal Academy's scholarship model, launched the moment a 13-year-old from the Philippines won a junior tournament in France, is now producing consequences on the biggest clay stages in the world. Eala's year-to-date prize money stands at $565,609. The Rome prize fund is €7,228,080. From a single match, she's already secured €25,515 and 35 ranking points. But the real accounting isn't in prize money. It's in what happens next. Rafael Nadal stepped back onto a tennis court in late 2025 because Alexandra Eala was on the other side of the net. He found it demanding. Even in retirement, he delivered 3 words at her graduation that restructured her entire professional life. And he connected her to Toni Nadal, the man who coached him through 14 French Opens. What Nadal built in Manacor wasn't just a training center, it was a method for producing athletes who win matches they're not supposed to win, on surfaces that used to be their weakest, in seasons where everyone is watching to see if the momentum is real. Alexandra Eala is world number 38. She needs the top 32 to be seeded at Roland Garros. Wang Xinyu is standing in the way, and the only question that matters right now, the one nobody at the Foro Italico can answer yet, is whether a decade inside that institution in Mallorca has prepared Alexandra Eala for exactly this moment.